2012 was the year. Clutching her Oscar for Silver Linings Playbook, Jennifer Lawrence stood on the Academy Awards stage. The world was captivated by her that evening, not only for her acting, but also for her authenticity. She stumbled on her way to the stage, but she chuckled it off and delivered a speech that was unscripted, humble, and authentic. Other icons were not like her. She was genuine. Hollywood had discovered its new America's sweetheart. However, within a few years, a transformation occurred. Jennifer Lawrence, who was once a symbol of authenticity, was subjected to criticism, caricatures, and backlash. Her films were unsuccessful. Her image transitioned from relatable to manufactured. Along the way, the system that had propelled her to fame, the awakened Hollywood, began to turn against her. This is the narrative of how the industry that nurtured Jennifer Lawrence ultimately undermined her. The ascent of the meteor. Jennifer Lawrence was unstoppable in the early 2000s. At the age of 20, she received her first Oscar nomination for her breakout performance in Winter's Bone. In an era that was fixated on perfection, she was distinguished by her magnetic charm, aptitude, and range. This was followed by The Hunger Games. Katniss Everdeen evolved into a cultural movement, transcending her status as a mere character. Lawrence was propelled to superstardom by the franchise. She became one of the most bankable icons in Hollywood history before the age of 25, when she added her role as Mystique in X-Men. However, her triumph was not solely due to blockbusters. Jennifer was a rare combination of old Hollywood glamour and contemporary relatability. The wake shift. The cultural landscape of Hollywood began to change around 2016. Time's up, #MeToo, #OscarsSoWhite. The industry was inundated with a new tide of activism, some of which was necessary, while others were performative. Studios began to overcorrect in fear of backlash. Politically safe narratives began to supplant authentic storytelling. The development of moral criteria by marketing departments preceded the creation of scripts by screenwriters. Jennifer Lawrence, who had established her brand on the principles of spontaneity and authenticity, was abruptly ensnared in a machine that no longer held these qualities in high regard. She became a spokesperson for Hollywood's new agenda, not by choice, but by design. Her tone transitioned from playful to didactic during interviews. The self-deprecating quips were no longer present. Rather, she was expressing her opinions on political correctness, feminism, and gender pay gaps. Yes, they were significant topics. However, they did not reflect her personality. They appeared to be the type of prescribed messaging that the public had grown weary of hearing. The issue of overexposure. However, it was not solely the politics that were the issue. Jennifer Lawrence had become ubiquitous. She appeared in more than a dozen high-profile films, many of which were released consecutively between 2011 and 2018. Joy, Passengers, Mother, and Red Sparrow all attempted to capitalize on her fame. However, the majority were unable to capture the essence of her uniqueness. Although her talent was undeniable, audiences began to feel fatigue. She had been transformed into a product by Hollywood rather than a person. Every late-night program, magazine cover, and campaign is attempting to promote the same image: Jennifer Lawrence, the relatable rebel. However, the more Hollywood emphasized her relatability, the less relatable she became. In 2017, Mother was released, a surreal psychological horror film directed by Darren Aronofsky, her then boyfriend. The backlash was severe. Although it was marketed as art, the film was not well received by the audience. Critics were divided. Jennifer vigorously defended the endeavor. However, it catalyzed her downfall. She was no longer perceived as the girl next door. Rather, she was regarded as Hollywood's chosen one, who preached morality from a mansion. The internet malfunctioned. Her quirky interviews were ridiculed by memes. Her performances were subjected to scrutiny in Reddit threads. Self-reflection and silence. Jennifer Lawrence had discreetly exited the Hollywood industry by 2019. She withdrew from award ceremonies, ceased participating in press conferences, and declined significant roles. She disappeared from the public view for nearly 3 years, not due to defeat, but rather due to necessity. Subsequently, she disclosed that she had perceived that everyone was tired of her, and she was not mistaken. Her popularity had been exploited by Hollywood to the point of exhaustion, and the public had become numb to her allure. However, something was transpiring beneath the silence. She entered into matrimony, she became a mother, and most importantly, she began to rediscover the reason she had always adored acting. She realized that her burnout was not the result of fame, but rather of being a part of a system that prioritized narratives over nuance once she was removed from the din. The function of the industry, Hollywood's fixation on image, particularly during the woke culture era, necessitates conformity. Actors transition into activists. Activists are transformed into brands. And eventually brands cease to be credible. Jennifer Lawrence was a victim of that system. She attempted to eliminate her imperfections with the same equipment that had previously appreciated them. The same press that praised her for being refreshingly real transformed her into a corporate symbol of empowerment. The outcome? Individuals were no longer perceived as individuals. Rather, they were perceived as personas. Recovery is not a simple process in Hollywood once this occurs. Anne Hathaway, Brie Larson, and Scarlett Johansson are examples of women who have experienced an overnight transition from revered to overexposed. This cycle has occurred previously. Talent is not always the determining factor. It is a matter of coordination. The return. However, Jennifer Lawrence has not disappeared. In reality, she is discreetly orchestrating one of the most astute comebacks of her generation. Her 2022 performance in Causeway served as a reminder to audiences of the emotional honesty that characterized her early career, which was characterized by her unvarnished, grounded acting. In 2023, she released No Hard Feelings, a body comedy that demonstrated her comedic timing and her willingness to ridicule her own image. The more significant lesson. Jennifer Lawrence's career is not a cautionary tale about failure. It is a manifestation of the phenomenon that occurs when Hollywood disregards the fact that individuals are attracted to personalities rather than policies. Her aptitude was not destroyed by woke Hollywood. Rather, it was submerged in messaging. It attempted to transform an unfiltered, endearing actress into a spokesperson. Audiences subsequently retreated when they recognized the deception. Now, as she rebuilds on her own terms, she is demonstrating to the world that there is still power in being oneself, even when Hollywood desires that you adopt a different persona. Before you go, if you enjoy in-depth explorations of the concealed narratives that underlie fame, power, and Hollywood's cultural juggernaut, be sure to like, subscribe, and join us for additional truth-driven analyses similar to this one.